Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unravel a really fascinating and honestly deeply misunderstood ancient practice. Picture this for a second. You walk into a vibrant, echoing temple for the very first time. The air is thick with the sweet smell of incense, heavy brass bells are just ringing loudly all around you, and there are thousands of people bowing down with this absolute unwavering reverence to a statue made of carved wood or cold stone. Now, to an outsider who's totally unfamiliar with Hindu customs, it looks exactly like people are just worshiping a material object, right? It's super easy to dismiss it at first glance. But there is a profound, almost mystical secret hiding right there in plain sight. So let's dive in and decode the psychology and the spirituality behind what we can call the divine focal point. To kick off our journey here, we really have to ask the most obvious question. Why bow to cold stone? Seriously, why would anyone put their absolute faith, their deepest hopes, and their daily prayers into a literal piece of rock? Well, it doesn't make any sense, unless that rock is actually a bridge to something else entirely. You see, in the Vedic tradition, the physical statue is never, ever the final destination. It's a carefully constructed conduit. When millions of people treat these statues with such immense reverence, they aren't practicing geology. They're actually using a highly sophisticated psychological tool that's specifically designed to connect the human mind to the infinite. So the very first thing we got to clear up is that the Western concept of idol worship, it's essentially a myth when you apply it to this tradition. Just think about the basic logic for a second. If someone truly believed the stone itself was the supreme creator, well, that would imply human beings literally have the power to manufacture the divine out of a mountainside with just a hammer and a chisel. Ancient philosophers were brilliantly aware of how backward that is. They knew full well you cannot create the creator in a workshop. Absolutely nobody believes human hands have the power to forge the ultimate reality. The ancient Sanskrit term that's actually used for these forms is Archa-vigraha, and that translates roughly to an authorized physical representation. To put it in modern terms, think of it kind of like a highly practical user interface for the universe. If you want to access the vast, crazy, complex data of the internet, you don't stare at binary code or massive server racks, right? You look at a glowing screen with a simple, easy-to-use interface. Archa-vigraha is designed specifically to help our very limited, easily distracted human minds grasp an infinite, formless reality that is otherwise just way too huge for our brains to comprehend. It's the focal point, not the whole enchilada. Let's ground this abstract idea with something we interact with all the time. Compare the temple deity to a postman. Say you write a crucial, super personal letter and hand it to a postal worker. You obviously don't worship the postman. You don't think the mail carrier is the final destination for your love or your gratitude. But that postman is the essential, authorized middleman. He ensures your message, or in the case of the temple, your devotion, reaches its exact destination. Without that active, physical conduit standing right there in front of you, your letter just sits forever on your desk. And that brings us to this absolutely fascinating ritual called Prana Pratistha. This is the exact, intricate process of how a regular sculpture is actually transformed into that spiritual bridge. Prana Pratistha literally means establishing the life force. It involves ancient mantras, intense meditative focus, and really deep devotion. It's this beautiful, highly specific moment where the formless Godhead is essentially invited to manifest a localized portion of its infinite energy right there within that inanimate physical form. Before this ritual, it's just a stunning piece of art. After it, it becomes a living, breathing conduit. To really wrap your head around how this works, think about the sun. The sun is one single, massive entity, yet it freely shines its light and heat everywhere at the exact same time. The divine is understood to be omnipresent in that exact same way. But if you take a magnifying glass on a sunny day, you can capture those scattered rays and focus them into one intensely hot, specific point. In the temple, the divine compassionately chooses to act like that focused beam, concentrating his magnificence into one specific spot, the heart of the deity, so that we, as supervisual creatures, can actually interact with him. But honestly, that naturally brings up a very logical, maybe even skeptical question. If the divine is everywhere, like the sunlight or the air we breathe, why even bother giving it a specific carved shape at all? Why go through the crazy elaborate effort to build a massive temple and carve a statue, instead of just standing in an open field, praying to the breeze, or staring up at the vast empty sky? Seems like it would save everyone a ton of time, right? Well, the answer is deeply embedded in our own human psychology. Our minds are just entirely habituated to names, shapes, and tangible forms. Trying to focus pure love and devotion on a purely abstract, formless void is incredibly difficult, if not flat out impossible for the average person. And this perfectly frames the famous ancient story of King Indradumna. He commissioned this magnificent wooden statue of Lord Jagannath, but due to a broken promise, the celestial sculptor abandoned the work early. The king totally panicked because the statue was left unfinished, seemingly missing its hands and feet. He freaked out, terrified that he couldn't possibly worship a form that looked incomplete. But the story doesn't end in despair. The Lord actually revealed himself in a dream to the distressed king and provided this truly profound insight. He explained that he operates completely beyond our human biological limitations. He doesn't need physical hands to accept an offering, nor does he need physical feet to move towards someone in need. So, that seemingly incomplete wooden statue, it became a profound lesson in divine capability. It taught the king and millions of people after him that the divine can reach you no matter what shape the vessel takes. Which brings us to a massive visual paradox. It's something you'll see in almost any temple if you just stand back and watch the crowds. Think about the profound irony here. A person might have traveled hundreds of miles, spent a bunch of money, and stood in a crowded, sweaty line for hours just to stand in front of an incredibly stunning, jewel-adorned statue. Yet, the very first thing almost everyone does when they finally step in front of it, they join their hands and tightly close their eyes. To understand exactly why they close their eyes, we have to look at the powerful concept of darshan. When people visit a temple, they'll often tell their friends they are going for darshan. Now, in Sanskrit, that translates literally to sight or vision, but it actually holds a much deeper hidden spiritual meaning. It means to know the divine. The external stone isn't there just to be looked at like some museum exhibit. It's a powerful catalyst meant to trigger an internal awakening. It's not a tourist attraction for your eyeballs, it's literally a mirror for your soul. So the true process of darshan works remarkably like an internal calibration. Yes, you start by standing right before the physical deity to anchor yourself into present moment, but then you deliberately pull your senses back from the noisy, distracting outside world. You close your physical eyes to locate the exact same divine energy, the pure energy represented right there on the altar, deep within your own core. Basically, you are using the physical statue as a set of spiritual jumpstart cables for your internal connection. If you're still kind of struggling to grasp how an object can hold such immense power without actually being the ultimate reality, consider how we treat a national flag. We all know, logically, that a piece of dyed cloth isn't the actual country itself. You can't live on a flag. But because it powerfully represents the history, the ideals, and the spirit of the nation, we treat it with immense honor. If a flag is tragically burned or destroyed, the country doesn't suddenly cease to exist. In the exact same way, a sacred statue powerfully represents the divine and is treated with the utmost respect without ever being the absolute entirety of it. And this realization perfectly explains a stunning and, to an outsider, completely baffling practice known as Visarjana. This is the spectacular moment where meticulously crafted, beautifully painted clay idols are deliberately carried out into the streets, plunged into rivers, and completely submerged in water after days of intense devoted worship. You'll see this on a massive scale during the famous Ganesh Chaturthi festival. It really begs the question, why on earth would millions of people intentionally draw something they just spent days treating as God? The answer lies in understanding the entire cyclical life cycle of this practice. It's this beautiful, deliberate four-step journey. We always start by acknowledging the infinite formless divine. Then, through Prana Pratistha, we invoke a spark of that energy into a temporary physical form. Next, we use external worship to train our wandering, chaotic minds to focus on love and gratitude. And finally, Visarjana. We boldly release the physical form back into the natural elements. This proves that the ultimate goal was never to hoard a statue, but to permanently implant that newly focused devotion inside our own hearts. Ultimately, this whole practice is a brilliant, ancient architectural framework specifically designed for human psychology. It exists entirely to transform our consciousness. It takes us out of what ancient texts call the mode of passion, that busy, restless, highly anxious state we all live in every single day, where our minds are just constantly racing. And it transitions us smoothly into a peaceful, incredibly clear mode of goodness. The statue is simply the profound tool we use to quiet the noise, stop rushing, and remember our true spiritual nature. It's an incredibly sophisticated psychological and spiritual system once you truly grasp the mechanics behind it. It takes a piece of cold, silent stone and turns it into a loud, undeniable gateway for profound inner peace. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What objects in our modern lives are we currently using as focal points, and are they actually bringing us peace, or are they just creating more noise? Having unlocked the secret behind this beautiful ancient tradition, what fascinating misunderstood custom are you curious to demystify next? Let us know.